In phase is AC. When you have in phase, you don't have strings, you have branch circuits because it's AC. Number of circuits. And then you have number of panels per circuit. Now, when you arrive to the job site and you know one panel is not performing, right? It can be an optimizer, it can be inverter, it can be optimizer, it can be microinverter, or it's a panel. So with SolarEdge, you have the inverter. In the inverter, you have the string lines coming here to the inverter. Positive, negative, positive, negative. When you know the number of panels and the number of strings, you have to measure the volts. Because it's DC, it's volts. On the AC, you measure the amps. How many volts is one panel? 1 volt. Exactly, 1 volt. So when you measure string number 1 is 12, string number 2 is 8, but you have total 12 and 12, it means at this string, you have a problem right here. That's the problem here. What is a possible problem? The possible problem can be a connection or optimizer module, or from optimizer to optimizer. Because you have the rails, you have the optimizer, you have the panel. You have the optimizer, you have the panel. You have the optimizer, you have the panel. And then you have the connections between here, and then connections between here. Most of the time, MC4, the module to optimizer, you're not gonna have a problem because it comes factory built in MC4. There is no way to do a mistake. What installers do a mistake is jumpers from array to array. When you do MC4 connectors, when you do MC, you look inside, you will see the metal is pushed. Because when you have an MC4, it's MC4, this is the plastic. Usually the metal needs to be here. When they don't do it right, the metal is like down here. So when you look, you will be able to see metal is pushed. And we can go warehouse and I will show you. When you see it's pushed, it means it doesn't have a direct contact. So you have to cut it and redo it again. MC4 connectors and MC4 connectors and MC4 crimpers. You must to have when you're doing this job. Is this clear, right? So you basically, for Dalian, you go, there's 2 inverters, you have to have the layout. So you know the string configuration, you measure the voltage, and you realize, okay, this string is, how long it took you to determine which string had a problem?
Not too long.
20 minutes? Okay, so when you already know that's where the problem is, then you chase that string. How you chase it? Do you open the panels, the end panels, and you see how the connection is being done.
But you know what they also did? They ran 2 of the positive string 2s.
So exactly, most of the time, if the foreman doesn't know the proper way to do it, what they do, they put positive to positive when they have to do daisy chain. Because when you have 3 panels here and then you have 3 panels here, the positive and negative and positive and negative, this positive needs to connect to this negative. So you can have a string connection, rather a series connection rather than a parallel connection. That's also you need to check. So basically when you find out this, and you're good, you know which string and you chase that string, MC4 connectors or optimizers, okay? Now, when you have in-phase microinverter, how you do this easy way? You have a combiner box, right? You have this sub panel with the breakers, 1, 2, maximum 3, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, it has line 1 and line 2, it doesn't have a strings, it has line 1 and line 2. You put your clamp ohm, clamp amp meter. How many amps is per microinverter? About 1 amps, same thing, about 1 amps. In phase is about 1.20. Sun power is about 1.30. In phase, the older model 0.09. So basically 1 amp. So if you put your clamp meter, and you measure the amps, you can see which string, which branch circuit is good as which branch circuit is bad. Now you know this problem. What can go wrong with in phase? And the in phase, when you have the rails, you basically have a possible that in a junction box. Remember, SolarEdge, most of the time, they don't put a junction box. It's a conduit jumper from one to another. You don't need to have a junction box to transition for the sunlight cable to regular cable. You just run the MC cable and that's it. The in phase, you have to have a junction box in the end of each array. So you have line 1, line 2, and neutral. Most of them, they don't even have a neutral. So probably the wire nut is not done properly, that's it. So you open, so basically again, PTO monitoring, you have 5 tasks today. First thing you do, you get the layouts to see how many panels you need to have. You measure the voltage, then you do that. Once you measure the voltage, you find out where the problem is, you put on the standby mode, and you do the PTO. Well, today is PTO, you don't need to put the standby mode, you can turn on the system and move on. Okay. We have those tasks to do, and nature of those tasks is going to